So I came across this pretty viral video a few days ago that Charlie Kirk, I don't know why I said that, put out, where he debated some college student on gun rights. And if you know anything about me, I'm actually a pretty big gun guy myself. I'm a gun owner, and I really like guns and being able to buy guns. So for the first time ever, I think I might have a little bit of ideological overlap and agreement with Charlie here about this topic. But other than that, let's just get right into the video. Make sure you like and subscribe if you like what you're about to see here.
Hey, Charlie, how are you? So I just had a question on your thoughts on if we need more gun control in the country or not. I'm very pro protecting America and the citizens that live in it, and so I think that we should have more gun control because there's a lot of school shootings that happen, as we mentioned, and I just think it would do a lot to protect the people. And I think the Second Amendment also qualifies that we should have regulations for guns. I wanted to know your thoughts on that.
Sure. Do you think gun ownership is a right or a privilege?
I think it's a right, but it comes with responsibilities.
Here's a question that I pose to pretty much anybody who likes to argue about rights a lot. Realistically speaking, functionally speaking, what is the difference between a right and a privilege? Because essentially what rights are state given privileges that can be revoked at any time, like if you're a criminal or something like that. Because criminals can have their supposedly inalienable rights taken away at any point, and that can include some people like marijuana users or whatever. So really, what is the difference between a privilege and a right? I just don't get it.
Okay, tell me more.
Well, I think that there should be things in place, things like red flag laws and things like that. The AG just approved Mel Gibson to get his gun rights back, even though he had a domestic violence charge. So, I don't think the people that commit these violent crimes should be able to buy guns and things like that. And I think we should have red flag laws in place to make sure that those violent criminals aren't getting guns.
Okay, so let's go. So tell me, in your perfect world, what would constitute?
Why don't we just fix the root causes instead of taking guns away from people who could actually use them? Like, you're not going to get rid of the gun violence problem just by banning them. People get their hands on banned things all the time, especially guns. Specifically through the black market and the dark web, they're called ghost guns, which are essentially untraceable guns because they were made with 3D printers and don't have serial numbers on them. Anybody can grab one of those. It's super easy to get one with like a Tor browser and like 5 minutes of searching online. That's not going to solve the problem. It just flat out doesn't. We've seen this countless times with school shootings. Oh, you're not allowed to bring a gun on this campus or whatever. And then it happens. It makes no logical sense to me personally, but
Just things like, we can look into any kind of medication and things like that that can affect someone's.
That could be dangerous, right?
I'm sorry, did you say look into people's medications as to whether they can own a gun or not? So if somebody's taking like a bipolar medication or something like that, they shouldn't be allowed to own a gun? The slippery slope with that is fucking insane. You know how many Americans won't be able to buy guns then? Have you seen how many medications we're taking these days because we're all mentally fucked up? Oh man, that's a hot take right there.
I mean, that could be compromised. I mean, there's a lot of vets that come home from war and that are on a lot of medication. A lot of vets could have their weapons taken away.
That is actually a good point. A lot of veterans that are well-meaning and stuff who have to take medication could get their guns taken away with that kind of logic. I can't believe I'm actually agreeing with Charlie Kirk on something for once, but here we are.
Well, I'm not necessarily saying, bless you, bless you.
Thank you. It's the
God
pollen.
bless you,
or something.
sir.
Thank you.
Gesundheit.
I'm not necessarily saying like it's mainly to prevent future shootings and things like that, and also putting in place things like a federal registry so that we know the types of guns that people have, and it would just essentially be a federal registry that shows these are the guns that this person has, in case a cop has to go on something like a domestic call. That's the most.
Again, ghost guns exist. There's a bunch of those floating around right now. Anybody with enough money can go buy a 3D printer, some metal, get the schematics off of somewhere on the internet, and then make their own gun at home. Like, it's not that hard anymore. There's whole ass documentaries about how ghost guns are made.
Dangerous call they can go on. So.
Yeah, I can see you're coming after this from a good perspective. Let me ask one other question. What would you say is the ultimate and final purpose of the Second Amendment?
I think it's self-defense against a tyrannical government, which
We agree.
Yeah, like what we're facing right now, kinda.
Sure, great. Keep going.
Well, but I think within the Second Amendment, it also implies that we have high regulations in the first four words.
Sort of.
It,
Well, well-regulated militia
Right.
actually meant well-armed, but that's a separate issue. But like,
Well, how do you know? You're interpreting what the founding fathers.
well,
put
they
in.
said it in the Federalist Papers, right? So it's not just me, but also in the Heller decision, in the 5-4 decision, that said that gun ownership was a right. This was a hotly debated thing.
But so
And-
do you disagree? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Do you like disagree with the idea of like a federal registry like
Oh,
that?
without a doubt. The
You
only
do?
reason you'd want to register
I actually agree with him on that too, honestly.
the guns is if you want to confiscate them.
Well, or to make sure that people like officers of the law are protected and know what
It's-
they're going into. I mean, a domestic.
Again, that
There's only so many times where they know what they're going into. Sometimes they're completely caught off guard by someone with a pipe bomb or something like that. You see how many fucking police body cam footage videos are out there of people getting ambushed by guys with guns and stuff like that? You never know if somebody's actually going to be carrying a gun on them or not. I mean, I get it, but I just don't agree with the argument based on actually how it plays out in real life. You never know if somebody's carrying a gun on them, especially if they're very good at conceal carrying them with the baggy shirt and all of that kind of stuff that hides it very well.
that's a good argument,
Right.
to your credit. I will try to make a better argument where the problem of the government knowing where every gun is would then lead itself towards mass confiscation. And I would agree with you, a well-armed citizenry is the greatest protectorate of liberty and freedom in this country.
Even though the army has things like drones and tanks and things like that,
That is a good point. I agree that we should use guns to fight the government, assuming it turns tyrannical. It kind of is right now, by the way. But at the same time, they've got a lot of different weaponry, like guns and tanks and stuff like that. Although, if we're going to be speaking within congressional limits or executive limits and stuff like that, they can't actually drone strike civilians, American civilians specifically, I mean. So technically they can't actually do that, but let's be entirely real. There is a chance that they actually will eventually, if there is a civil uprising or massive civil unrest, realistically speaking, especially with how Trump currently acts.
outarm, citizens that have
Yes and
just
no.
a
I
handgun.
mean, we've seen it in several instances where at least a citizen, that's a good argument, but I would say a little flawed, where the citizens are able to protect themselves in some ways. It's a much harder population to control.
I understand, but so you think a federal registry would infringe on the rights?
Potentially. I mean, I think that there's no good argument, I think, other than potential. I ascribe to the government bad motives and bad intentions when it wants to infringe more on these types of freedoms and liberties.
Well, I understand. I just personally don't.
I can't believe I'm agreeing with Charlie Kirk more than the other person that he's debating for once. I'm actually in agreement with him on a lot of this. The issue is, he's also on the government good when it's somebody that I like Donald Trump. He's been very bootleggy about him over the Epstein files, for instance, recently. But on this particular case, at least, this particular debate, I actually do agree with his stance a lot. It's just that he's a fucking hypocrite, unfortunately. But that's a whole other video for a whole other day whenever we end up going over a Trump debate or something that he does.
See it as an infringement because, like we just said, and I think we agreed that owning a gun is a right. However, I
Yes.
think it was responsibilities. But also, I wanted to ask: is voting a right or is that a privilege?
Well, it is a right, and that's so felons can get their rights back, right? And so,
Right.
But they can also get them taken away. So it's not really a right, it's a privilege. Again, like I said at the very beginning, rights are essentially state-mandated privileges that can be taken whenever they want, whenever the government want.
rights can be suspended or delayed, and we
Right,
both agree
but-
with that. So,
right,
for
but-
example, like somebody in
Exactly, yeah, they're called privileges.
prison doesn't get guns.
Right. No, of course.
Somebody in prison doesn't have the same free speech rights that you might
Right,
have.
but what's the first thing that you have to do if you want to vote in this country? You have to register, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a federal registration to be able to vote in this country. So why not, and we can agree that, keeping safe and, keeping our elections to where people who shouldn't vote aren't voting is, that's keeping America safe because we don't want people who
That's a fair. That's a
can't
fair
vote.
point. I would
That
say
actually is a pretty good argument, I won't lie, because I was thinking about making a false equivalency thing, because it's like, somebody with a gun could go out and kill somebody, but then you also have the issue of like illegal immigrants and stuff that nobody really wants voting in America because they're technically not citizens and could technically vote for politicians that harm us, like communists or whatever. So I would say that's honestly a fair point as well.
something that there's a technical difference between a voter registration roll and a gun registration
Right, guns
roll.
are much more dangerous.
Well, also, but guns in many different ways, they would go after the guns a lot more than the voter registration roll.
Well, how do we know, though?
my worldview comes out of
Well, maybe not anymore with how Trump's cracking down on it.
one in the 20th century, where almost every totalitarian government went after the guns first. And the confiscation of guns then leads into the erosion of freedom and liberty.
Right, but wouldn't you say in the 20th century, as you just said, that the disparity between the technology that citizens had to protect themselves compared to what the military had, wouldn't you say that there was a much smaller disparity as opposed to what we see nowadays?
Somewhat. I think that's a fair point.
So,
I'm acknowledging that's a fair point.
okay.
Oh, okay.
But
Well,
I just,
Do you see my perspective as well?
No, I do
that,
understand.
That an
It's-
armed
it's-
citizenry, also it says shall not be infringed, so we have to kind of wrestle with those two things
right, but
simultaneously.
so if it's just a semantics argument, then to that point,
Well, it's not. I mean, semantics is meaning. That's literally what the word means. But
right, but
so,
you're saying because it says shall not be infringed, we can't do anything.
No,
Does
no,
that
I'm
mean,
saying,
does that
though,
mean
that
voting rights can be
I'm
infringed?
saying
Because it doesn't say it cannot be infringed.
I'm saying I err on the side that more government regulation around guns means that they'll try to take good people's guns away, which then results in less global or let's just say national freedom and liberty.
I understand, but wouldn't you say that that more guns can potentially lead to more danger and less guns
Yes
would lead
and
to less
no.
danger?
I mean, there's plenty of evidence to show.
well, yeah, there's a 50-50 trade-off. More guns equals more mentally ill people or malicious people that can go and shoot people. But the issue is we can tackle those things in other ways to mitigate the amount of people who are malicious or mentally ill, like psychopaths or something like that, right? We have the potential to be able to fix that, to be able to address root causes, as I said before. The problem is nobody in major positions of power actually really want to talk about that. Sure, you have some progressives like maybe Zohran Mamdani or the online political left who are big on like universal health care or single payer or whatever you want to call it, who focus on wanting to address these root causes at least indirectly. But when it comes to the whole gun debate and stuff like that, I see nobody wanting to address the root causes directly, such as fixing the poor people's situation, such as providing some form of welfare to be able to get people out of these positions that drive them to be able to or want to commit crime and all of these other things. I don't ever see anybody talking about that specifically when it comes to the gun policy debate, and I don't know why. They'll talk about it with other debates, like with the whole healthcare debate or capitalism versus socialism debate, but we never talk about it in the context of the gun debate for some reason. I don't know what it is.
States that have more, so like if you take Houston and Chicago, about comparable populations, Houston actually has warmer weather, which means potentially more gang violence. They have
What?
about half.
Is that an actual thing? What the fuck? Hotter weather equals more gang violence? Why does that seem kind of racist? I don't know.
If not even less, the amount of homicides per year than in Chicago. Chicago has much stricter gun laws than Houston, like incredibly strict gun laws.
I understand, but I'm also, well, I think part of what plays into that is the gun laws that are around those cities. They're a lot more lenient than those cities themselves. So I think, I'm not saying that's entirely the cause of it, but I'm saying
I've heard that my whole life, so yeah.
Right, but I'm basically just talking about preventing people that have committed crimes such as domestic violence. I know I mentioned Pam Bondi gave Mel Gibson his rights to purchase a gun again, even though he pled guilty to a battery domestic violence charge in 2011, and yet now he is able to purchase a gun again, which I disagree with because he committed a violent crime. I mean, do you disagree with that personally?
No, I mean, I don't know the details of the case, but I think I've met Mel Gibson. I think he should be able to own a gun. I mean, like
Just off of speaking to him, though?
I've
even
heard
though
that
with his
name. I don't
family
know who.
history?
I
I
forget
don't-
who
again, I
that
don't
is
know all
though
the
and what he did.
details. Do I think that the idea of taking his rights away because of something that happened that I don't know all the details about 14
Well, he
years
pled
ago?
guilty to it, though.
Again,
I mean,
I find that to be a little bit of an infringement on basic rights.
even though he literally
Again, I don't know the details around that, but I guess we're getting to a place where do you think anyone that's convicted of violent crime should be able to own guns again?
No, not at
Oh,
all.
wow,
If they're
okay.
committing a violent crime, absolutely not. I think we should protect.
But what about people who get rehabilitated and stuff, though? There are a decent amount of violent criminals who end up not reoffending and stuff like that, rehabilitating them. I don't see why we can't give them a second chance eventually if they end up showing that they've truly changed. I don't know. It just seems like pretty overly restrictive, especially when, again, there are other ways we can solve this problem without having to take away people's guns or the ability to purchase guns, including mine.
People in America, which I think you agree with, and I think
Yeah,
that
but
is how we protect America.
that's a balance. Are we going to really say the federal government is going to protect us from ourselves when it comes to guns?
No, I mean it's less about the federal government taking away guns and more just allowing them to protect their citizens. And it's not about getting rid of guns. I'm a gun owner myself. I go
No,
hunting. I
I'm
was
not
on a
doubting any of that.
competitive
What
team.
state
But
would you say has the gun laws that are the most appealing to your worldview?
I don't know specific state laws, if I'm being completely honest with you.
I
I was
But,
thinking he was going to say
something to think
California.
about.
but I'm speaking, even just the federal registry itself, I think that would protect, a lot of officers of the law. Like I said, when they go on domestic calls, that's the most dangerous call that an officer
So
of the law
there
can go on.
there's an informal registry, not a formal one. Just so you know, gun dealers are supposed to report
Right,
gun,
but do you
gun
really
sales.
think that they do all the time, though?
No, of course not. Obviously, I mean,
Right,
I
so
live
wouldn't
in
the
reality.
federal
But
registry eliminate that problem, then?
again, I would go back to a formal registry. You register in order to confiscate. It is a prerequisite towards confiscation.
Isn't that just a
I will-
slippery
I will
slope
not-
back to the
argument,
old
though? If
point
you get
there.
one
Well, it's
thing,
not.
then
It's
another
a
thing's gonna go.
historical
point.
argument, right? We see that throughout totalitarian dictatorships throughout the 20th century, where if you want to take the weapons away, you first ask for a collection of all the items that you then want to collect. But I
That
can
is true, though. I think he does have a point when it comes to totalitarian governments wanting to take away your guns and stuff like that. That is like, there is a true historical precedent there. The issue is, we're kind of facing that right now, and you like the government that's doing it. He's just a massive hypocrite when it comes to this kind of stuff. On one hand, the federal government can't protect us. On the other hand, it's Trump, so you're gonna like pretty much everything he does and end up excusing stuff like the Epstein files, and that's a whole other debate.
see, look, you're coming after this in good faith. I tend to be on a much more libertarian side, even though I'm not libertarian, where we actually need looser gun laws because I think that
Looser gun laws?
Oh yeah, yeah. I
In
mean,
what
especially in
way?
states
Like-
like Chicago and Illinois, where it's very basic Second Amendment rights. So I'll give you a great example.
Okay.
In a state like Rhode Island or New York,
Right.
it could take a woman upwards of 30 days to get a gun. So
Mm-hmm.
let's say a man wants to actually do harm to her, and she gets threats, and the police won't intervene. I think she should be able to get a gun that afternoon to protect herself.
I understand that.
So like
but
in that case, I think that gun laws should be looser.
I understand.
I think,
In-
like-
in that regard, I do agree with you.
Cool. So like
Absolutely.
that would be
But-
an instance of that. And I also will go back to this idea of red flag laws. We have seen case after case of it being abused, of veterans having their weapons taken away because of fake accusations and let's just say faulty accusations saying that they're mentally unbalanced, so on and so forth.
But do you think that they could investigate cases like that and see if there aren't any medications? I mean, a lot of these
They can.
antidepressants can.
Theoretically, yes, they can, but the issue is these kinds of laws all the time are abused. So why even let them have the chance, in my opinion?
Change your brain
For
chemistry.
sure.
completely
And some of
alter
it, though,
you.
is they take the guns away first and they ask questions after. It's a difficult, very, I don't want to say gray area, but edge part of the law where I tend to, and a respectable position, respect to you, I tend to err on the side of it is a right. The government screws up more than it does correct in this specific portion. And the downside to having more guns is far better than the downside of having only the government have guns.
Even if that can cost American lives, though. I mean, me personally, I would give
Well-
up all of my guns in a heartbeat.
You don't think it's going to cost many more American lives if the government comes and guns us down and tosses us into concentration camps and stuff like that? Like, between the thousands of American deaths that we currently have because of the whole gun situation in America right now versus the government sending the National Guard everywhere and placing the entire country under martial law, kidnapping people from their homes, kidnapping people off the streets like ICE is currently doing in California, for instance, it's a really hard choice, and people are going to have their opinions on it, but I would personally prefer the ability to fight back against ICE if they bust down my door because I don't look white versus the alternative, unfortunately. Like, you do have to make that hard choice because that's kind of just the place we're in right now when it comes to American politics and the current state of events. So I'm personally going to err on the side of I want to defend myself if the government comes busting in my door because I'm an anarchist or whatever.
If I knew for a fact
Okay,
that it was
let's-
going to save one life.
Can I do a thought experiment to you?
Sure.
So, do you think we should ban driving?
No, I
Ooh.
don't think so.
Of
And I
course
know
not.
where you're going with this. 'Cause car crashes are more.
55,000 people a year die from car accidents, right?
Right,
So
absolutely.
I'm impressed he has that off the top of his head. I'm not gonna lie. Conservatives are actually very good, to be fair, to give credit to them, at being able to cite certain statistics off the top of their head. And I know that's like general for propagandists and stuff like that. They have their talking points memorized and stuff like that. But this is kind of like a random statistic to be able to remember, and I am genuinely kind of impressed that he can do that, to be entirely fair. Others do it on the left as well, obviously, but there are certain standout conservatives that are able to just, like, memorize something and be able to just spout it off out of nowhere like that.
But those are accidents, though. That's not someone intentionally going
that's
and
not
killing
true.
somebody.
Some people intentionally do, or some people have DUIs, right? Some of it is
Right.
an act of agency, not just accidents, right? Meaning
Yeah, and a lot of them are drunk driving accidents too, like DUIs, like he said. So
that they are reckless with the technology.
I understand.
You would agree a DUI is a reckless act.
Oh, for sure.
And that's a vast majority of auto deaths,
Right.
both in the interior of the vehicle and the exterior.
Right, but then what do you have to do to be able to drive, though? You have to get a driver's license. You have to take a test with an
No,
instructor.
of course.
no, you can just get in the car and drive again. We've seen countless people just get DUIs, get their driver's license taken away, and the next thing you know, they're driving a car again because they're banking on not being caught and pulled over without a license. Especially considering cars are a lot easier to get than guns.
But I'm saying if the pursuit of to save, if it's all about saving lives, then
Yeah.
then there are certain things that we'd get rid of. I would say though that government is not merely there for our safety. It's one of the primary
true.
focuses. You have to balance liberty and
Not
safety.
really.
And that's a tough balance at times. I fall on this issue on the side of liberty.
Wait, what was he said before?
Government is not merely there for our safety. It's one of the primary focuses.
I wouldn't even say it's a primary focus of the government personally. The entire point of the government is to be able to enforce its power onto us and maintain the status quo, essentially. That's what we've seen time and time again. They will kill us and they will hunt us down whenever they want to. It's not to maintain our safety. I'm sorry to say, there's just no anthropological evidence backing that up whatsoever. They will shoot. We've literally caught them shooting reporters with rubber bullets and shit like that. You call that the government protecting us?
You have to balance liberty and safety. And that's a tough balance at times. I fall on this issue on the side of liberty. Final thought.
So what? Yeah, just one last quick question, I promise. What about something, as I mentioned, with taking a driving test to be able to get a driver's license, you have to prove that you know how to operate the vehicle safely. What about something similar to that with owning a gun? Some kind of thing where you go to a range with a trained professional,
No.
you show that you know how to operate the gun, safely, know how to store it safely, things like that. Yet,
Yeah, I mean,
and then
so-
once you pass that, you get some kind of card that allows you to buy a gun.
We already do have something like that in a lot of states. I know we have it here in Texas technically, but you can technically also just buy a gun off whenever you want. I don't have a carrying license myself, but I know you can get one to be able to technically legally carry it into certain places where you're not supposed to carry it without the license.
I mean,
I
it's all
think
about.
But that's also at the same time kind of just like another form of the gun registry, essentially. If you have a carrying license, good chance you're also going to have a gun. Otherwise, you wouldn't need the carrying license. So it's just an indirect registry of guns, essentially.
Protections. It's not about
Yes,
restricting
on
rights.
that you might have some agreement with me. Because actually,
Really? That's kind of weird. Because it's just like another form of indirect registry of who owns guns and who doesn't. I'm surprised he didn't catch that.
the number one cause of errant gun deaths is accidental discharges. People that don't know what they're doing with their gun.
I understand.
And so I
Huh.
think that could be prevented through better training. So for that, I actually might have some middle ground.
Okay, I appreciate it. Hope you and your family had a blessed Easter. God
Thank
bless
you.
everybody.
God bless you. Great job. Thank
Oh
you.
wow, that was all the way back from Easter? What the fuck? Well, honestly, that wasn't too bad of a debate. I didn't have to scream my head off or anything like that. The guy was obviously very civil. Charlie Kirk enjoyed the debate. There was a little bit of middle ground found. I obviously side a lot more with the right than the left when it comes to gun rights and the ability to buy guns and stuff like that, as you could see just by how I talked about the debate breakdown right here. But other than that, I really don't have much else to say. I'm glad this debate was pretty short compared to the other stuff that I've had to cover before. And yeah, let me know what you think down in the comments about gun rights. Do you think that people should just be able to buy one whenever they want? Do you think that people should just be not able to buy one whenever they want? I'm sorry, I'm a little bit tired. But yeah, if you liked what you see here, and especially if you want to see more, because I do want to put out more shorter debate breakdown highlight content. I kind of want to go back and cover some older debates and stuff like that, back when debates were cool and had more aura compared to right now. If you kind of want to see more of that stuff, especially since it's a growing niche, make sure to like and subscribe. Check out my Ko-Fi, check out my Patreon, check out my fitness website down below as well, just because I am also a personal trainer and I plan on making a fitness channel soon. Join the Discord if you want to talk to me directly about how much I love guns or how much you hate guns, and yeah, I'll see you guys on the next video. See ya!